Well, good morning. What a wonderful gift it is to have life and to be able to share with one another during this time of year. By the time you hear this message, it will have been, we are approaching Thanksgiving in a few days, or maybe by Monday, for those of you who serve in the hospital, you receive this message after Thanksgiving. All the same, happy Thanksgiving to you. We're grateful for you. And we wanted to share this message with you of encouragement and inspiration, as we often always do, because you're valuable, you are appreciated, you are loved, and you are irreplaceable. And we mean that from our hearts. Hi, I'm Chaplain William Johnson, or Reverend Dr. William Johnson, whatever the titles may be. I'm glad to offer these words of meditation. Today's meditation is entitled Giving Thanks. And as I thought about it, it seemed simple enough to share this message with you. But also found myself engaging in conversation recently about what all of that means. That giving thanks or sharing our words of gratitude have much more weight when we consider what these things mean. At every letter, in the old days, you would write a letter by hand, and you would have to come with some closing, some last salutation, or some way, not of a greeting, but saying goodbye. And often in those letters, we would end them by saying yours truly, or something that had meaning. It seems so out of place in our strange environment and context and culture now to say with love, or yours truly, or those other things that I mentioned earlier. But we would often sign with gratitude or with thanks before we signed our name at the bottom of our letter, to say to the other, especially if it was a personal letter, that we are grateful for all that they have done. And so that when we wanted to acknowledge something someone had done for us, we would often sign our names after those words with thanks or with gratitude. Well, here we are in our lives. Each day, we live a 24-hour span. Some of us are on the go for many of those hours. We may get a little sleep. We are eating, we're sharing with family, we're sharing with friends, we're working our job, we're trying to meet deadlines, all the things that are really important for our lives. But yet and still, sometimes at the end of the day, we neglect to sign the day off with gratitude, or with thanks, or with gratitude, because often life has come at us so fast. It has been so difficult. Sometimes we're barely making it through the day. Sometimes by a thread. Sometimes by a hair. Sometimes barely with any sanity of our own to hold on to. And it's hard to really find a way to muster up the strength to be thankful or to offer gratitude for something that has happened during the course of the day. Not to mention if the day has been riddled with trouble and trials and difficulty and maybe tragedy and hardships and tears, it's hard to come to the place where we're able to give thanks or to offer gratitude for a day. But the truth is that when you kind of look at it from a different perspective, if we no longer see our lives as something that someone owes us, but as a gift, and if we no longer recognize that the days are going to go the way we planned them, but sometimes we not only have to do things, but we get to do things. I learned that somewhere. I have to go to work, but I get to go to work. I have to tend to my children, but I get to tend to my children. I have to go see my mom, but now I get to go see my mom. This pandemic and all of the tragedy and trials that are so much of our national discourse and international engagement often leave us with a shift in mindset that we not only have to do things, but we get to do things. So during this Thanksgiving, it is a privilege to be able to say that I have the opportunity to share Thanksgiving with other people. Not Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving. And so how do we give thanks? How do we come to the place where we offer our gratitude to the day or to the year or to the month or to the experiences? Well, one thing about gratitude, one thing about Thanksgiving is that we don't thank God or thank anyone for the things we want or the things we would want to have. We thank them or thank God for the things we already have in our possession. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about gratitude and giving thanks for what we have. That requires some time of reflection. It requires that we take a few moments to reflect on what it is that we've experienced in our lives. And so to have a life filled with gratitude means that we have to sincerely think and reflect on the lives that we've lived and the experiences that we've had and be thankful for all of it. Well, why do I say all? It's because life is not a series of snapshots, but sometimes the things that we wanted so badly and the things that we desired so much that if we had received those things when we wanted them, we probably would have been filled with regret from having to deal with a problem that we surely weren't prepared for. I don't know about you, I would raise my hand, but there are some circumstances and some situations that I wanted to my heart's depth. But I am so glad 10 years later that I did not follow that path and I did not receive what I wanted. Yeah, there are cars that I wanted to drive that I'm so glad that I didn't have and I couldn't drive. There are opportunities that I wanted to have, but I'm so glad now that I did not have. And yes, there are people in my life that I wanted. I'm just so in love and so wanted that. And then you look and see 15 years later and go, I am so glad that I did not get that wish or that prayer. Those are the things that we have to consider, that life sometimes shapes us in such a way that it leaves us with the ability to be grateful for all things, not just the things we wanted, but the things that we did not get that we may have wanted. And not just the things that we received, but the things that were held out and we received maybe perhaps later. There are moments in our lives, that's all I'm saying, is that we have to remember to give thanks in everything. There's a song that says, give thanks, uh, give thanks, give thanks. The way that we give thanks is by the way that we live in recognition, in appreciation, and yes, dare I say, in remembrance. So take a moment to reflect and give thanks. Thanks for your family. Thanks for life, health, and strength. Thanks for the people that you loved and that love you. And thanks for the people who have not treated you so fairly. Thanks for the people who have treated you badly. Thanking God for the people who have been a part of your life, maybe nominally, but maybe very impactfully. Who knows? But be thankful. There's a story I want to share with you as I close this brief message. It's one of those about giving thanks. There's a story of two women who lived next to each other, and they were neighbors for sure. One was very diligent about trying to do what she could in her garden. So she planted a garden, she prepared a garden, and she loved her garden. She had flowers in the garden. She had vegetables in the garden. She had all sorts of things there that she grew. She loved to get her hands in the dirt and to make sure she was able to grow something. Her neighbor, on the other hand, had no fancy for the garden, did not want any such life. In fact, the neighbor loved her dog, and she would bring her dog out for a walk every day. And every day she would lead her dog, go into her neighbor's garden and leave little presents, if you will, in the neighbor's garden without picking it up or cleaning it up like so many people do now. But the dog would leave the mess in the garden. I know. But time went on, and the neighbor who had the dog suddenly no longer was walking her dog. And while she no longer walked the dog, her next door neighbor who had the garden noticed that something was wrong. So she imagined she must have been sick. So she asked around, and others said, yep, she's been sick, and we have not seen her. So the neighbor decided, who had the garden, to go and pull some things out of her garden, some vegetables and flowers, and prepared a soup for her sick neighbor and some flowers to take to her. And when she took the soup and the flowers over to her neighbor who had the dog who was sick, the neighbor kind of sat up and perked up. She had the soup and she felt so much better because the soup was delicious. And she saw the flowers that were blooming, and she was so thankful that someone cared about her because no one had come to see her. After eating and observing and marveling over the beautiful flowers, here's what she said to her neighbor who brought her the gifts. She said, where did you get such beautiful flowers? And where did you learn how to make such soup? It is delicious. The neighbor who had the garden simply said, well, I have a garden, and every day you brought your dog over to mess in my garden. However, what your dog left was fertilizer for my garden, and it grew up the best of vegetables and the best of flowers. So she shared with her, the soup comes from my garden, the flowers come from my garden. And I learned how to take the mess of it all, to be thankful for it, and to give back the flowers as well. I could say more about that, but sometimes people are messy in our lives, but you also want to give thanks for those things too. Give thanks for it all, because you never know whether or not it's making up your garden and making up the flowers and the vegetables and the best of all that there is. So have a great day. We want you to know that you're loved, you're appreciated, and you're irreplaceable, and keep giving thanks for it all. You'll discover that if you thank God for it all, you'll discover that you no longer have time to worry about the things that worried you the most before. Give thanks. Have a great day. Thank you so much, and have a happy Thanksgiving.